so welcome back to Lux Reads. So in today's video, I am doing my Toni Morrison collection slash catalog of just her fictional work. Now I've done Bernice L. McFadden and I've done James Baldwin. I'll make sure to put that down in the description box, where again, I go through their whole fictional catalog because Toni has some critical essays, nonfiction type of works too. But y'all know me, I like fiction work. I do have those works, but I haven't read them. I haven't read all of them, as opposed to the fictional books. I've read all of them. But let's just get started with our whole fictional catalog. So I'm going to go in order. So the first book that Toni Morrison wrote was The Bluest Eye, and that came out in 1970. The main protagonist is about a girl named Bricola. She wishes that she basically had blue eyes, and that would make her just beautiful. And inspiration for this book is, Toni said when she was about 10 years old, her and a good friend, they were quarreling if God was real. And Toni, was insisting that he was, and her friend wasn't. And her friend said, well, I have proof. And she said, what's the proof? And her friend said, I have been praying for 2 years for God to give me blue eyes, and he hasn't delivered. And she said, she thought about that when she got older, and she was thinking the way the girl looked, she was really, really dark, regal, and pretty, and like just had sharp features. And she was like, it would have been awful if God gave her blue eyes. And the fact that she equated blue eyes with beauty, which clearly is white, so that just got something rolling, and she came up with this. You guys already know this book was banned. She said she got $3,000, I want to say, and she took her sons and her mother and father to Aruba. She said they had such a good time. I mean, when you think about it, she didn't get anything from this book, but then when she started getting bigger, it just started growing. So yeah. Next is Sula, and this was in 1973. Sula is my favorite, one of my favorites, I would say. Sula, oh my goodness, what can you say about Sula? This is a character where you won't forget her. So you have Sula and Neil, right? Yeah, Sula and Neil, they're like great friends, been knowing each other since they were little, and you just see the progression from childhood all the way to adulthood, and the things that Sula did, Lord. But one thing I like about Sula, she never apologized of who she was and what she was, even though some stuff she did was wrong, especially to Neil. But like I said, she was so unapologetic. And you come from a small town, and she leaves and comes back, and people are just, you know how they are. When you come from a small town, when you have lived your life and done something, they feel some type of way. And her thing is, I can't help that, She's just so witty, so in your face. Again, she's a character that you will not forget. And I was looking it up. It said HBO is in the works of adapting this into a limited series. Writer Shannon M. Houston, which I never heard of her, but she is supposed to basically be adapting it. So hopefully that comes true. I think this would make a really good limited series. I'm interested to see who they would cast as Sula, though. If she's going to be like an unknown or known, but yeah. Next is Song of Solomon, and this came out in 1977. Now this made Toni, she said, like she felt like a real writer, where she stopped working at Random House, because while she was writing her 3 books, she also was an editor. And she was like, you know what, after I wrote this, I'm making more money, I'm more well known, and I don't even have to do that. I just want to focus on my writing. So she always said that this made her a serious writer. This follows the life of Milkman from childhood all the way to adulthood. It has some slavery aspects. A lot of people, they always gravitate towards this book. If you notice, I was looking at some interviews, and you already know Oprah Winfrey adores Toni Morrison, but she, like, on one of her Instagram posts, it was some years ago, she had literally memorized a whole section of the book and recited it. And then who else loves this book? Oh, I know Michelle Obama. It was an interview that I watched with her and Jenna Bush, and she was talking about she's read this so many times. Now, I'm going to say with Toni Morrison, she can be very difficult to read. And if you miss one line, one sentence, one phrase, you're confused throughout the whole book. You might as well start over again. Because that's what I had to do with this book, and that's also what I had to do with Beloved. And one thing that really did help me though, when I started it over, I listened to it on audio while I actually was reading the book. And Toni Morrison, she narrates all of her books. So while listening to it and then reading it at the same time, it was easy to navigate. But again, she's very hard to read. Very hard to read. I'm just going to say that. Next is Tar Baby, and this was written in 1981. I actually like this too. This one is more, well, no, I was going to say simple. No, okay. This one is basically about a girl named Janie and a man named Sun, and you see their relationship, you know, throughout the whole book. But Janie comes from wealth. She was like taken in by a wealthy white family, and Sun, he a man out in the streets and has lived a street life. And like I said, they get together, but they come from two different worlds. So a lot of stuff that Sun does, just like, oh girl. I mean, he's physically abusive, he's mentally abusive, he's verbally abusive, and you know, you basically see how it goes. Now this one, it has a little bit of magical realism, and then it ends with a cliffhanger. You're kind of like, that's it? You know, it's like, huh? Because the ending, like I said, the magical realism, it ends like that. And obviously has some magical aspects. So you gonna have some people flying around in the air and da 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 da. But it does have realistic aspects. But this one, it does leave you like that. It's like, but yeah. And then also too, I was interested in a name, and she said, Tar Baby is also a name that white people call black children, black girls, as I recalled. At one time, a tar pit was a holy place, at least an important place, but tar was used to build things. It held together things like Moses's little boat and the pyramids. For me, Tar Baby came to mean the black woman who can hold things together. So as you can see, real deep, and you kind of understand what she's saying, but you know, Toni just deep. That's just what it is. Next is Beloved, and this was in 1987. Clearly everyone knows this. It's inspired by Margaret, Gardner. You have a woman that was a slave. She basically killed her children so they wouldn't be enslaved, and baby that she killed becomes a ghost, haunts her, and da 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 da. Now this actually was a film. It stars Oprah Winfrey, Kimberly Elise, who else? Danny Glover, Tandy Newton, but it actually flopped. It didn't do well at all. I don't think people were just ready for that to be turned. People weren't ready for the book, clearly. I mean, because it made a sensation. But I think also just adapting this at that time in the 80s, they still weren't ready. Look, we still was talking about Roots, okay? And Roots came out in the 70s. But something this, I mean, you literally have a woman, this is based on a true story. You have a enslaved woman that kills her children so they won't be enslaved. I personally, this is not my favorite. This also was very difficult. Like I said it before, I had to actually listen to it and read it at the same time. And still with some parts, it's just like, I kind of got the gist of it, but with Toni writing again, it's just like, yeah, it can be hard. That's all I can say, basically. But yeah, girl. Okay, next is Jazz, and this was written in 1997. Now, Jazz actually was the first book I read of Toni Morrison's. I was 19 years old when I read Toni. Again, you already know my story. I was not a reader at all. So this is considered a historical fiction novel. It's in the 1920s. You have Joe and Violet. They are married, but Joe has been messing around, and he messes around. Violet does something to his lover. Now, another thing with Toni Morrison is she'll put the whole plot in like the first 2 pages, and then you'll read from there. So she'll let you know everything that's going on. Remember when I first started reading her, that would frustrate me because I'm like, I don't want to know up front. I want to know, towards the end or whatever. But then I was like, you know what? I actually started getting used to it and started liking it. This one is not that difficult. It's not that difficult. Now, you still got to pay attention, but you can get through it and be like, oh, okay, I understand what happened. You can give, you can tell people what it's about. It's basically, like I said, it's simple. It's about a married couple. You have a husband that cheats on, his wife, and you go on from there. And next is Love, and this is in 2003. I like this one too. This is also kind of simple too. The book is telling you about a man named Bill, is it Crosby? And he is, every man. Papa was a Rolling Stone type of man. And he has recently died. And you have these women that he has been with. They're basically, it reads like sections. So they're telling, so they're telling you how they got, together with him. But like I said, he's recently died, and he owns a hotel, and they're trying to basically see who can get the hotel, who can get his money, who can't. But just to see how he wooed those women, and Lord, he was a mess. All right. And then the irony of the title, Love. I love Toni's play on words. She does that a lot. But this one, like I said, it wasn't that hard to read. It actually was really good. Next is A Mercy, and this was in 2008. This one was very difficult. It's a slavery novel. That's all I can tell you, because I'll be honest, when I was reading this, I just wanted, this is at the time where I didn't want to DNF books. And I would just kind of fought to get through it. And then again, I was doing it throughout the project. So I'm like, I have to read all her fictional books. But all I can tell you, it's about slavery. That's all. Set in the 1600s. Yeah, girl. Yeah. It's not that long. It's actually, I think I read this in a day or two. Yeah, it's only 165 pages. So, I love this edition. It's so pretty. Is this the first edition? Girl, I got a first edition of a Toni Morrison book. Okay. Next is Home. I like this one. This was in 2012. And this is about a man named Frank Money. Frank has recently fought in the Korean War, and he is he gets discharged or whatever. And I love this because she talks about, first of all, I didn't know anything really about the Korean War, and I didn't know that Black men fought in the Korean War. So you get a black man's perspective about war, and you get a black man's perspective about fighting in the Korean War. And also too, you see how, veterans are treated. And you see, he goes back to the South where he's from, and girl, you already know racism, segregation, all of that, people calling you boy and all that. And then he has a sister, Cece, and she also talks about during the 50s how they would experiment on Black women when it comes to health. And yeah, girl, because that scene, it was like, Lord Jesus. And the fact that was true with the medical profession did to a lot of Black women, it was an eye-opener. But this one was really good. And then her last book, which came out in 2014, is God Help the Child. I actually like this one, and this one was not that difficult to get into. So you have a woman named Bride. She is very, very, very dark, like blue-black, and her mother just cannot love her and doesn't give her the love because she is Black. She's like, because you're so Black, your dad left me, and da-da-da-da-da. So she does something to basically she does something so her mother can show her love and attention, but it ruins another person's life. Ruins it. So yeah. But one thing I love about Bride is, for her being so Black, when she got older, she embraced her Blackness, where she would only wear white. So you had to just stop and look at her. I thought that was a real breath of fresh air, because when you do think about obviously colorism and people that are dark, they just hate it and they try to shield and hide. She didn't write Bride like that. Bride was go show you, her pretty Black skin. So loved it. And then that was the last of all her fictional books. But I wanted to share one short story that she wrote, and it's the only short story that she wrote. It's called Recitative, and it was in 1983. Now I have this collection, On Girlhood by Gloria Edom. That story is in there, and it's talking about two girls named Twyla and Roberta, and they both are in like foster homes, but you don't know which one is black and you don't know which one is white. Now, when I read it, I thought Twyla was black and I thought that Roberta was white. But I recently watched a lecture, and I'll put it down in the description box, well, where they were saying that Twyla was white. Again, you don't know, it's up to the reader. But you do know, like, when it comes to classism, who is, you know, doesn't really have money, who does have money. But again, you don't, there's no right or wrong answer. Again, Toni play on words and the way that she writes her stories. I mean, that's just so clever when you think about it, because you don't know, you know, who is black and who is white. And sometimes you read it, it just gets you like, you want to know. And there's some clues, but I gotta read it again. If you guys do have this book, Recitative by Toni Morrison is in this collection. So yeah. Another thing I want to mention too, I did not know that Beloved, Jazz, and oh girl, I forgot one more, Paradise. This was written in 1997. Okay, this is difficult too. So you have a town called Ruby, a group of women that lives in a convent, and the town wants to basically get rid of these women. This one was difficult, and I really wish I didn't have the audio for this. I just read it, and Lord. Again, if you skip one line, one word, one phrase, you're done. And I know for this book, she said that got a letter from some prisoners, and they were saying that they couldn't let the prisoners read this book because they was afraid they was going to start a riot, which is like, my goodness, how powerful a book can start a riot, Lord. Yeah, that's basically the short end of it. Very difficult. All right. So I think we're done with Toni. Okay, we are done with Toni. But one last thing I want to share. I did not know that Jazz, Beloved, and Paradise are actually trilogies. Well, now that I think about it, I'm like, were they connected? They're supposed to be, well, it's a trilogy, but I can't see any connections. Again, guys, Toni, I keep on saying it over and over and over again in this video, but Toni can be very difficult to read. She honestly can. And I would say, my advice is read the book also along with audio, and then look at her interviews with her talking about it, and some, you know, professors, some critical analysis that talk about it. I always like to, I'm a visual person, so if I always look up like, you know, a lecture, and they'll talk about the book. That's what I did with the Recitative short story, because I just want to see what other people are thinking. And a lot of times too, they will, you know, have some information that you missed or didn't really think about, and you can go back and be like, oh, okay, that's what Toni was saying, or that's what that character was saying. So that's my advice when you do read Toni Morrison. Yeah, that is it when it comes to my Toni Morrison catalog, the fictional catalog. I am a fan of Toni Morrison. I think that she is beyond brilliant. So yeah, guys, that's it when it comes to this video. I'll be back with more black books. Bye.